Hey folks, I just wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about the effects of temperature on your solar system and how it performs. Because really, what got me thinking about it today was I noticed that I was getting 7,250 watts of solar in. Now I've got a 7,500 watt system. So you might be saying to yourself, hey, why's that a big deal? Well, I haven't seen anywhere close to 7,250 watts in months, probably 4 or 5 months. Is there something wrong with my system? I mean, I got a 7,500 watt system. Why am I never seeing 7,500 watts? Well, the answer is it's been hot here. And now that we're getting into latter September, the temperatures have gone down quite a bit. Like today, the temperatures outside's like in the upper 70s. The norm over the last 4 or 5 months is typically been the upper 90s. So the hotter the temperature outside is, the worse your solar panels will perform. Now, during the summer, that's not a big deal, right? Because you get a lot of sunlight, so it makes up for the lower output. But during the summer, typically, I see a little less than 6,000 watts. I hope I'm getting the units right here. If I say 1,000 and I add a K, well, I'm wrong. Take the K off. But 6,000 watts, a little less than 6,000 watts is the norm. Sorry about my dog barking. But then we get into the fall or back in the spring, and we see more like the 7,500 watts we expect, because it's a 7,500 watt system. And then we get to winter. Okay, typically here in South Carolina, we might get 1 week or so a year where at night the temperatures get down below 30. Most of the time we're almost always above freezing, especially during the daytime. The thing with that is solar panels. Well, what's important is what's happening during the daytime, and more than likely, most of the time during the daytime we're at least in the 50s. So the solar panels love cold. When it gets colder, you bring in more watts. And that's why the most energy I've ever seen me bring in one day was something like 43 kilowatts. And I believe it may have been late December or early January. And in case you're not aware, the shortest day of the year in terms of sunlight is something like December 21st, 22nd, something like that. So shortest day of the year, not too far after that, I bring in the most power I've ever brought in. Well, there's several reasons for that. For one thing, we've been going through a long cloudy spell, so my batteries had enough room to hold the stuff. But the other bigger thing was how cool it was outside. And suddenly, boom, I got, I think, 8.3 kilowatts of energy coming in at once. I saw that kind of peak, 8.3 kilowatts on the 7.5 kilowatt system. So during the cold times, you get extra. Now, so far, all I've been talking about is the effects of the temperature on the solar panels. It's like, hey, this is great. During the summer, when it's hot, you don't get as much energy in, but you have more sunlight. During the winter, when it's cold, you don't have as much sunlight, but when the sun's out, your panels perform better, so you bring in more energy. That sounds perfect like what we want, right? Because you'd like to have a constant supply of solar all year, but that isn't typically the case. And part of that is because of another effect of temperature, and that's on your batteries. Your batteries like it when it's around room temperature, basically. I think 77 degrees, something like that. So when I tell you I've got over 100 kilowatt hours of storage in my batteries, well, that's only at the ideal temperature. I mean, if you want the exact number, it's 2,300 amp hours times 48 volts. So it'll give you how many kilowatt hours my batteries are supposed to hold. But temperature has a drastic effect on that. It does. Batteries don't like it when it's hot, and they don't like it when it's cold. For instance, I think the distributor I talked to said the batteries could lose basically about 30% of their capacity because of real high or low temperatures. So in the summer, I might lose 30 kilowatt hours and only be able to store 70 kilowatt hours. Well, since I have plenty of sun, that doesn't typically become a problem. Now, it's in the winter, things get a little more interesting because we don't have a whole lot of extra sunlight, right? I mean, all my calculations on the solar system assume getting 4 to 5 hours of sunlight a day. And when you start figuring in clouds and stuff, it's easy not to get that during the winter. Your solar panels, when you do have the sun, it really works well. But then again, it's cold outside, so even if it's generated a lot more, the batteries aren't going to be as efficient storing it. So that points me to why I decided to make this video, is because I'm trying to say, hey, I would really love to get through the winter without having to run a generator. And I mean, I only ran it, burned up about 120 pounds of propane. That's 6 20-pound propane canisters last winter, and that's not too bad. I mean, I think I paid about $25 for each one, so it's not too bad. But I really would like to just not have to run the generator at all. Of course, in a month or so, I'll check out the generator, make sure it's capable of running, but I don't want to run it at all. That's part of the reason I put in the wood stove. You've seen that video. Since my house, I try to run the heating and cooling with heat pumps. It really, I don't know how to describe it. That affects, it has a seasonal effect too, because during the summer, my heat pumps run all the time. During the spring and fall, they don't run that much at all. And during the winter, they run a little bit. It's not nearly as bad. Well, if I can, burn up a lot of dead wood around here and minimize how much my heat pumps are using, I should be able to really last longer. So hopefully the wood stove will help on that. But then we get to other thing that I've been thinking about today is my batteries are out in the battery building. You've probably seen them in some of the other videos. And what I do with it, during the summer, the windows are always open on the building, and I've got some vents I open up and stuff, because I want it cool in there where the batteries are. And of course, when it's 90 something degrees or 100 degrees, that's not going to buy you a whole lot, but oh well. But during the winter, for one thing, I close the windows, close up the vents, and hope my batteries, the heat from charging them, will keep them, reasonably warm. And that probably works to some degree. But I really wish I'd spent more time on the design of that building, because I have had some insulation added to it, and my batteries do have it's like a table built on top of it. And the top of the table is just a big sheet of plywood. And while that table is there, I can get on the plywood to get to the solar equipment that's mounted behind the batteries. Well, during the summer, I take that sheet of plywood off so the heat in the batteries has a better chance of escaping. During the winter, I put that plywood down because any heat in the batteries, I want to stay there. So what I'm considering doing is maybe adding some insulation around those batteries. And that kind of table with the sheet of plywood across all the tops of the batteries may come in very handy, because I'm thinking I've got some old comforters around here, and I think that table will get rid of any chance of anything touching the battery terminals. So I might just throw some comforters over that table to help keep those batteries warm. That's my thought anyway. It's something I'm mulling over today, and I'm hoping that some of these experiences will help you, right? Hopefully my screw-ups will save you money when you try to go off-grid. So seems like there was one other thing I wanted to say. Oh, let me see. Oh, I know what it is. The longer I've had the solar system, the better I've been able to judge the conditions of my batteries. And that comes from watching the voltage versus the load, right? If you don't have a load on your system, the voltage pretty much meaningless. Voltage is not telling you how much power is in your system, right? You know, certainly if your voltage is 0 and you have no load on it, yeah, you probably haven't got any power. But if you have nothing connected to the batteries at all and you read tons of voltage, mine's a 48 volt system. If I read 60, 80, 100 volts, if the terminals were disconnected, it wouldn't matter a bit, because if you don't have a load on there, the voltage can be terribly high with actually very little power in there. Power is different. Power is voltage times current. So you kind of learn by watching your system, and each year you judge better what conditions your batteries are in. Mine's a 48 volt system. If my voltage gets down, I think it's about 46.5 volts, that's when it's really getting bad. In general, you don't want to run your batteries down to 50% full. So when I say I have 100 kilowatt hours worth of battery storage, you're only supposed to use 50 of that max, and you really don't want to get down to that. But as I've gained experience, I've learned how to watch and have a better idea of how good my batteries are doing. Now, another thing you can do to kind of get an idea is when it's at night and you're going to gradually see the voltage go down overnight. Like I say, the voltage doesn't mean how much power there is, but you can look at the voltage and say, wait a minute, I don't know how much power's in there, but that voltage seems to be dropping pretty darn quickly. And if you got, and of course, we're talking always with a load, a significant load. I like to see at least like a kilowatt, because typically I use around a kilowatt continuously. You know, a little less at night. Sometimes a whole lot more. But you learn to judge, and early on, my first year, I wouldn't be able to judge the battery's conditions that well at all. And there was wiring problems with my battery monitor. My battery monitor still isn't right, but my battery monitoring has improved, and I think I know some of the problems that are left. But learn to get a feel for the conditions of your batteries from watching the usage, the voltage when it's under load, and pay particularly attention when it's at night and you're not getting power in, how quickly the voltage goes down. It's just some helpful hints, and it really just takes time to get that good feel. And the thing is, why it takes years is because, like I said, batteries like, in general, the spring and fall, solar panels like the winter, right? So your characteristics of your system change as the seasons change. And of course, seasons change, solar hours and temperature are the big things there. Just some thoughts. I hope this comes out helpful. Oh Lord, I've been rambling on way too much. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.